I'm going to preface this video by saying, do not do this. I have updated all of my personal devices to their respective developer betas, and I'm going to have some instability, so unless you want random crashes and possible file loss, do not do what I'm doing. With that boring disclaimer out of the way, let's look at some of the new things that were announced in WWDC that have actually made it into the first developer beta of all of the operating systems. First, let's take a look at iPadOS and iOS. Now, you'll see here that I'm using my iPad Pro. My iPhone is currently filming this video, so it's kind of hard for me to show you what's going on there. So as you can see, the lock screen can be customized. You have widgets on the side that you can add, and when I unlock my iPad here, the blank space and the date and time and that cool stuff, that's all using Widgie, so that's not part of iOS 17. You can see that the control center hasn't changed, the app library is pretty familiar. In the Tips app, what's funny is that if you go to apple.com, it brings you to the iOS beta preview instead of the iPadOS. So I guess it really just shows us that iOS and iPadOS are just the same thing. Except one of them has a stinking calculator, Apple. By the way, my recommended calculator app is Solves. It looks really nice, almost like stock, and it syncs between all your devices. I guess we can talk about iMessage now. Swipe to reply is nice and convenient. Catch up is cool. For those of you who don't know, catch up is an ability to press a little arrow and it'll bring you to the oldest unread message in a chat. So if a group chat has been particularly spammy, you can press that arrow and it'll bring you to the oldest unread message, so you don't have to infinitely scroll up and figure out where you need to start reading from. And I like how audio messages are now transcribed. Check-in seems to be another step to Apple trying to take over Life 360, which honestly I don't mind, as I trust Apple with my data much more than I do Life 360. With iOS and iPadOS, there really isn't much to talk about. I mean, I guess FaceTime has some new features. iPadOS finally caught up to iOS as far as lock screen personalization. We now have interactive widgets and personalized call screens, but it's very apparent that Apple's focus was not on iOS and iPadOS 17. Yeah, we'll get to that in a separate video. The Apple Watch got some cool improvements. The side button now brings you to Control Center instead of your app history. Widgets make their way to the Apple Watch, setting aside complications as ways to see data at a glance. This is pretty cool to me, as complications are nice, but I feel like they're pretty limiting as far as seeing data quickly. But yeah, this year really hasn't been very eventful for iPadOS, watchOS, or iOS as far as new features. A bunch of UI improvements, sure, those aren't always nice, stability improvements hopefully, but that's pretty much it. Not much exciting. Can macOS save us from a very boring WWDC? Well, maybe? Depends on your definition of boring. To me, there is exactly one interesting feature in macOS. Sonoma? Yeah, Sonoma. That's the ability to add widgets to your desktop. That's cool, I guess. Oh, also the lock screen on macOS looks pretty different now. That's cool, I guess. So yeah, it's very clear where Apple's focus was this year. No redesigned Control Center, no fun new gimmicks or fun things on iOS or iPadOS. Just some nice improvements to the OSs, and, well, that will get its own separate video. But for now, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and have a great day.